Hi guys, how are you? Welcome back to my garden. It's planting day today, and it is planting day in the back of my garden in the brand new area. If you remember, last autumn I started planting already a couple of Hamarockeles, clematis, all different kind of fun perennials. They all came through winter. They're really growing now. It looks really beautiful. In the meantime, I also started to fill some of the gaps with additional plants that came here from the upper garden. So some sedum, some grasses that were self-seeding here in the upper garden. So I was like, well, plants for free, they're going to look great there. So already started plant a little bit, but today I want to plant 26 Perovskia that I bought online and they finally arrived. I'm so excited about them. And on top of it, I bought 5 more Heucheras. I have to admit that over the years, I really developed a big love affair with Heucheras. And when I was in the garden center the last time, there were 5 of them standing there, calling my name. They were like, we're so pretty and we're going to look so great in the new area of the garden. I thought, you know what, you're right, you're really going to look great there, so I needed to have them. So how I want to structure today's video is, first of all, I want to tour you around and show you how everything looks now, because finally you can look at something with the perennials filling in and growing. Then I want to plant a Perovskia and a Heuchera together with you, and while planting, I want to give you all the information about those perennials, just in case if you want to grow them in your own garden, so you know what you're dealing with. And then towards the end of the video, I hopefully have a nice before and after effect of like how the areas are filling in finally. Can't wait for summer, for everything coming to bloom, and do a lovely garden tour in that area with you. So all I need to do now is quickly go to my garden shed, grab the tools I need, and then can't wait to finally tackle that project. So hope you're excited to join me in my garden today again. Alfie, you want to join us in the garden? Or you want to play with a stick? Or you want to do both? Maybe we can agree on both, right? Yeah, I think so. You're going to come with us. Look at this. This is the upper garden. Just on a glance, so I can show you how everything looks. Things are coming to bloom here too. It looks really pretty, by the way. All the hyacinth, they are in bloom, but it's all different shades of pink. And I just ordered yesterday 210 hyacinth, where I think that they're going to look very pretty up here. So I'm going to dig all of these up and put them in a different area of the garden. And then autumn comes, I am going to plant a brand new variety. Napita fills in really pretty, but this is actually what I want to show you. My favorite tulip. This is Silver Cloud. Very beautiful. They're not really in full bloom yet. They're just starting. So once they are in bloom, I'm going to tour you around and show you how everything looks here. But for the moment, I think it really looks so pretty already. Very lush green, so nice. But now finally we go to the back of the garden. This is the brand new area of the garden. It's fully southwest facing, which is beautiful because it's totally sun-filled. So if I swing to the right, you see that the garden just opens up to farmland here. In the backdrop, there are 3 mature trees, which provide an amazing framework, especially during winter time. And if I swing to the left, there is the upper garden where we just came from, and the back of a garden, the slope, which I leveled out into terraces. And you see some color blobs there. So some of the tulips are already in full bloom. So maybe towards the end of the video, I'm just going to give you a quick tour of those tulips because they're very pretty. But you can already see some really nice blobs of color straight in front of you. And those are the Heucheras. And I think you can understand why I needed to have them, because Heucheras, you don't really buy them for amazing flowers. You really buy them for this really fun pop of color that the foliage brings all year round, basically, which is also really interesting. And if I give you a closer look at them, you can see what I love about these leaves, or what I love about color in general in the garden, is sometimes when you don't have a very uniform color. You know, the single leaf has all different types of orange, copper, peach, crimson red, burgundy, really wonderful display. And for this entire area, I want to focus on shades of like orange, blobs of pink, and a lot of blue in here. So I think that is going to be a really nice, interesting color concept. And obviously, you don't always want to have a color in bloom. It's also sometimes really fun to have color in foliage. I wish I could tell you what variety I want to plant here, but as it often comes, and everybody who follows my channel knows what comes now, Kwiaty rabatowe. This is how things are often labeled here, which basically just means border flower or border plant, which to be fair it is, but still I sometimes wish I could share with you what I'm planting here. So 3 go on this side of my pathway and 2 are supposed to go on the opposite side, but there's still some penstemon which I want to transplant. This is going to happen in a different video. And I'm not ready for that yet, which means that I think the 2 Heucheras here on the left, they're going to stay in the container a little longer. But what I want to plant, and all of those are going to go into the ground now, is 26 Perovskia. This is Blue Spire, and I ordered them online. I found the guy actually on Instagram, and I figured, oh, he's here from Poland, he runs a nursery. So I thought, you know what, just give it a go, order them. And he's really nice on top of it. And then he just selected amazing plants. I mean, look at them. All of them look fantastic, very sturdy, and I think for the price you really can't say anything. So unboxing, I was so thrilled. I immediately ran down here, just placed them where I wanted to grow them, and I think that this is going to look very pretty. So if I just step to the back, you see two big drifts. So I've got 26 plants in total, 13 plants on each drift. So on the right there are 13 just next to this elder that I pruned. In the back, if we just continue walking, they're basically some of the spare plants from the upper garden. So there are more eucharis here, where I hope that they're still going to bulk up. Then there are hydrangeas that I planted. Then there are sedum. All of those are basically just like from division from the upper garden. So quite a lot of them. Then here is a wonderful drift of daylilies. Those are the ones that I planted with you last autumn, and they're all looking really fantastic. This is South Sea, if I'm not wrong. Then the sedum are Herbstfreude or Herbstfreude, depending on how you want to pronounce it. Then I've got Blazing Star, which are now really coming back, so you can see it here. A lot of grasses, they were all coming from the upper garden, they were all self-seeding. And then I want to have another beautiful drift of Perovskia here, so you really have a straight view. What I did in this area though is I marked the pathways already with the sticks that I pushed into the ground, because by doing that I exactly know where do I want to walk and where do I want to plant. So I really have like this path like curving and winding through. There is a shrub which I want to plant. I'm not really going to tell you too much about it now, but I want to wait for the first leaves to really appear so I can show you why I want to plant it here. What I did on top of it is in this area, I'm almost done with my weeding project. It's a lot of weeds were in here. And all of them were like these pesky ones that are just having like roots growing under the soil, so runners, and then they just pop up everywhere. So you need to be so thorough with that. But there is just this tiny last patch left here, and that's pretty much it, and then I'm done. But what do you think? Isn't this kind of just going to be a fun, nice area? So interesting. I'm really looking forward to take you with me on the journey and how to develop it. So what I'm going to do now is first I want to plant the eucharis, give you some information about eucharis in general, not about this variety since I don't know what it is. And then I want to plant some of these Perovskia and give you the information why I want to grow them here, how to grow them, and what's so special about these plants. Whenever you want to plant something in your garden, the first question that pops in your mind is like, why do I want to plant it and what can I expect out of this plant? And when it comes to eucharis, I think the answer to that question is quite simple, because you can expect an amazing display of color on the foliage pretty much all year round. And the fun thing about eucharis is that they come in a vast range of foliage colors. So you have, for example, chartreuse or lime green. You have all different shapes of green into like dark and lush green. Then you have these coppery tones, rust, red, crimson, burgundy. Some of the burgundy foliage have like a little icing, like a frosting color over it. Some of the leaves have like frilled edges, so very exciting. And the beauty is that they grow in so many different areas. You can easily put them in a container somewhere and arrange them in a beautiful pot garden. And you can obviously put them in your borders because they make amazing front row plants. Because if I just pop it here in the front, you already see that they just frame everything really beautiful. Over time, they're going to establish, they're going to build these beautiful half dome shapes, very soft, very lush. And then if you combine it right, for example, in the back here, I've got some daylilies. So I have this contrast of like beautiful accent color in the front, very big leaves. And then in the back, I've got these almost grass-like leaves from the daylilies. They are going to produce blooms in an orange tone, so kind of like matching the foliage color here again. And as all of this matures, I think it is going to look really pretty, especially if you decide to have a drift of eucharis here, a drift in another area, then maybe a third drift. So your eye is kind of drawn into an area and it just knows where you want to walk through an area. And this is why it's sometimes good to make a decision and use certain plants as accent or focal plants of a planting. Depending on the leaf color, this is often a good indicator indicator on where a plant in general likes to thrive. So this does not only apply to eucharis, this applies to all different kind of plants, even shrubs. If you have, for example, chartreuse or lime green foliage, the reason is that those leaves produce less chlorophyll. And that means that they can't tolerate so much sun. So don't try to put them somewhere where they are exposed to the full harsh sun of noontime. Try and put them somewhere more in partly shade and the plants are going to thrive better. But foliage like this here, and this is really based on my experience, can cope fairly well with sun, even though in my bag there are the big mature trees, which means during lunchtime there will be a momentum when there is more shade here. And I think this is also good because when you have kind of blooms with big leaves, it is good that they have a momentum throughout the day where they're not like frying in the sun, where they have the ability to just like come back and just like regenerate a little bit. Eucharis, they also produce blooms, but you don't really plant them for a big impact of blooms. Those flowers are very delicate. They produce very nice and elegant long flower spikes, and at the end, kind of like bluebells, they have this nice circle of like bell-shaped flowers in different colors. So you have cream yellowish kind of tones, whitish, silverish, and then even red blooms. Sometimes they're very nice even for cut flowers. So when I have a euchera that produces a lot of flower stems, I might even come in and snip a few off for a small vase flower arrangement. So very pretty. So we talked about the leaves, the flowers, where they thrive. So the soil is also quite important whenever you plant something. Here at the south coast of the Baltic Sea, I've got fairly sandy soil. And eucharis, they prefer a little richer soil. So what I need to do is I need to enrich the planting hole at least a little bit. I already dug a hole a little bit bigger to what the container is. And what I do now is that I come in with some fresh compost. So just like 2 good hands full. And then I'm also going to sprinkle some organic bone chips in there, what I always do because they break down to nitrogen and that feeds the soil and it feeds the plants in the long run. So it is like a fertilizer that is going to work in a long run. And then I'm just going to mix the fresh soil a little bit with a native soil here and really try to use the soil from the outer circle of the planting hole, because eucharis, they produce shallow roots, which means if I have a deep planting hole and then I'm just going to put all the nice soil in the back, in the bottom, that sometimes those roots are not really going to reach all the goodness that I tried to give it. So I try to make sure that on the corner of the planting hole there is some nice, good, fresh soil. So this looks all good and beautiful. And now if I just tip it over and get it out of its container gently, you will see that they really have fibrous roots. So sometimes when something looks pot-bound, I would always try and encourage you, try to find the fleshy roots and try to break them loose so that the roots can grow outwards. But when you have very thin and fibery roots, I sometimes feel it is more stress to a plant actually now getting in here, because there are no fleshy roots. You don't really know what to tease out. So here I'm not going to touch it. I'll leave it exactly as it is. I'm just going to level it now into the planting hole and firm it in, make sure that it's planted really nice and level. I always tell you nice and level. There are certain plants where actually it might be a good idea to even plant it a little deeper. For example, some clematis varieties, it is good to plant it like 2-3 centimeters even deeper to how it was in the container, because by doing so, you will encourage the plant to produce more shoots. So now I firm it in nicely so that there are no air pockets. Even though at this time of the year it's not such a big drama anymore, it's really important when you plant something before winter. And backfill with mulch. Isn't that just gorgeous? I absolutely love these plants. I can't wait for them to fill in. Very happy. So what I'm going to do now is, one has, well no, this is just like no mildew. Those are just like some stains from watering. Very pretty. So I'm not going to plant the other 2, as I said, because there's still a pan stem on. So now we focus on 26 Perovskia. Developing new garden areas is always great fun, because you can always play with like new ideas and new plant combinations and color schemes. And one thing that I just figured is, since I'm going to plant here now, I don't need these sticks anymore, because the plants are now going to define where the border is. So I can use these sticks now somewhere there in the back where I haven't really planted anything yet, to really just map out where I want to have my path and where do I want to plant something. What I did in this area though prior to the video is I've already prepared the soil. So really it's kind of mounted a little bit, and what I did is I came in with some really good fresh garden soil from the garden center, dug it all under to make sure that I have a nice fresh texture here. In general, I have very sandy soil, as I said, so I thought try and give them some goodness. When it comes to Perovskia, and we're looking at the leaves have kind of like a little feathery texture, I would always say, and they are silverish green. They drop the leaves then during autumn into winter time, so you're gonna have almost like a shrub because they can grow to quite a substantial size. The interesting thing about those leaves is when you have leaves that are silverish, that is always a great indicator that your plant is a sun seeker and it likes to thrive somewhere in full sun. So having this area here, which is really southwest facing, they are bound to work here. I already have 3 Perovskia in the upper garden, and they're thriving, they're very easy, and one is even like a little more in partly shade, and even there it is quite happy. So I know that this is bound to work, and they are going to look fantastic when you really plant them in masses. And this also has to do with the flowers. So the flowers, they are also kind of just like spiky, a little feathery again, kind of like the foliage is feathery, the flowers are too, and they have a wonderful lilac color or like a lavender color. And this is also why I love Perovskia. They come in different heights, really depending on your variety. This is going to be taller. They're also smaller varieties, but they are an amazing substitute for lavender. I do struggle big time with lavender here. I narrowed it down to two patches of lavender in my entire garden, because over the years I always lose a lot of them during winter time, and it doesn't have to do with cold temperatures, it has to do with the amount of moisture that these plants get. Even though they are in sandy, well-drained soil, is too much. It is always the same old story when you have Mediterranean plants in a wet climate, especially during winter time, they just hate it. And Perovskia is an amazing substitute then for lavender, because they have a similar kind of foliage color, different though, and they also have a similar kind of bloom or color of flowers. The height, really depending on the variety, blue spire, it can grow to 1.50 meters in height, which it doesn't here. It grows at most 1 meter. Really the tip, the last tip of the bloom, and then it can grow to like 80 centimeters in width, which also it doesn't do here. So this is why I pack them a little bit narrow, because I don't like to have like shrub and then a gap and then shrub and a gap. I really want to have them together. Speaking of shrub, they are shrub-like perennials. They really have this kind of like, as they mature, the branches are almost woody. And what you can do, now they will cut back to ground level, what I do, trying to encourage them to produce more branches and grow a little taller. I'm going to cut them back pretty much to this height. So pretty much like 30 centimeters above ground level. In the first year, I have to see on how vigorous these plants are. I already said that they are sun seekers. And when it comes to soil, this is great news because they're not fuzzy. And this is why I love them. The only one thing that they don't like is they don't like to drown or sit in a puddle. So well-drained soil should do just the job, and I think this is why they are so happy here. So planting, I do exactly the same to what I just did with the Heucheras. And since I prepared the soil here, well, ish, I thought I might not need a shovel, just a little bit. And I haven't mulched anything here, which is also great because that means that I'm going to mulch after planting. So here I don't really have to think too much about the soil, so I can just like put it to the side now. Come in again with some organic bone chips, just twiddle around. Here comes a plant, there's a grass weed growing, so that goes out. In it goes. Very nice, not pot bound. They have got some fleshy roots, but they're coming here from the base of the pot, so that looks all fantastic. So whoop, again, level it in nice and gently, and then firm it in, again, ground level, don't bury it. So some of the soil has to be pushed over here. Oh, love it, can't wait. I really can't wait to give you updates on this entire area. Once it's summertime and they're going to bloom and everything is going to fill in, I think this is going to be a fun, great area. So now I'm really going to plant all 25 left Perovskia, and then I can show you how everything looks. So thrilled. I really love to see how this entire area starts to fill in the more of plant in here now, and I really think that color-wise is going to be so beautiful. Heucheras, the ones on the right, they're planted, the ones on the left, they still need to find their way into the ground, but first of all, I need to transplant those penstemon, and I'm going to do it in a video with you. Then on the right, the first big drift of the Perovskia, and I'm happy that I really made the decision to buy so many of these plants, because I think when you plant them in mass, the impact will be really beautiful. As I said, the flower spikes, they are going to be really feathery, beautiful texture, especially with the light coming through. Can't wait to see that effect. And I also love to play with different kind of texture. So I have these rather feathery and very airy and light growing Perovskia mixed with some grasses. Then I've got hydrangeas, and then the really compact sedum here with these big disc-shaped kind of flowers in the back. There is a grassy kind of texture from the leaves of the hemerochilus or the daylilies. More grasses here, and then another really beautiful big drift of Perovskia, which I think is also nice as a focal point because you walk straight up front of it. Behind it, I want to plant some dahlia. So I'm thinking about a variety called Rancho, which is going to produce orange, pinkish kind of blooms. Never grown it before, so I'm very intrigued to see how this is going to go. Just in the back, I still had some Bistorta from the upper garden, which I planted there. And then here at the rear end, I already started to define the path. It is a little funny curve maybe, but I put a viburnum here at the last bit basically as a big focal point, and I thought, okay, I really want to have it here so that the shrubs are not all planted in a line. So this really had to go here, which means that the path kind of goes here and then it does a little funny curve. It is really close to the farmland now. And then this is basically where it all ends in a big rubble. But a lot of the soil that I don't really need to use anymore from planting holes, I just dumped it here. And then I had a lot of Aster astron, which are so vigorous. So I thought, you know what, I just put them here and then they can just spread wildly. And I think it is going to be really beautiful. Oh my God, just don't look at the rubble. This is still something that I need to figure out for myself. But this is the beauty, how everything is going to look later on in the year. I'm going to show you, can't wait. But first of all, I quickly want to share with you my beautiful tulips. All of the tulips that I want to show you now were planted 1.5 years ago, which means that they came back now the second year. And this is really interesting because there are some tulips that flower really beautiful the first year, and then the second year they just gently fizzle out or they produce teeny tiny flowers, but not this variety here. Isn't that just stunning? This is called Salmon Van Eyck, and I think I planted roughly 20 tulips and they really came back amazingly this year again. I love the color of it because again, it's not uniform. You really have all different kind of tones in here. It is salmon, but there's also like buttermilk yellow, there's pinkish, there's a little mauve, very pretty, big whopper-sized kind of blooms on very elegant long stems. What I did yesterday is I ordered 150 more of them because I want to have more clumps of them. I want to have a second clump here just down the same layer. And then obviously in a brand new area, I also want to put some tulips there because I love when you have a wonderful bloom and it just repeats itself throughout the garden. Black landscape fabric, yes, it's still here. So what I actually did is I had all good intentions. I drove to the hardware store and I wanted to buy some of these fencing sections to get out in the garden and stain them black, and you know what, they were all sold out. So luck was not on my side. Maybe another day. Still, I really want to start bit by bit mantling all the ugliness here. So at one point, I can stand here and really show you the slope and it's going to look all beautiful. And there's no more black fabric to look at or plastic to look at. But let's look at some beautiful tulips up there now. These tulips are called Albertine, if I'm not wrong, but actually I'm pretty sure because planting them, I thought, oh, just like the Dutch supermarket. They started off a little bit more on the pale blush side, but now as they mature, they really get brighter and more pink, kind of like a Barbie pink. But I don't mind it because here in the back of the garden, it's sometimes nice to have a pop of color and a focal point because you really can see them from the distance and your eyes automatically drawn here into this area and you're like, oh, what is that? It's really pretty. They have a wonderful green marking. I love the shape. They are not as big and bloom as Salmon Van Eyck, so definitely I prefer the Salmon Van Eyck, but this is also a really nice tulip and it came back. I mean, what more could you possibly ask from a tulip? Just sitting here, the area looks so fantastic. My bearded iris, and then the allium, which are going to bloom in summer, and then the napeta looks so fantastic already here. But this is really the main reason why I love to work in this area. It's sun-filled, but the entire garden just opens up. So I have this beautiful view over the countryside. It's so tranquil. So for me, this is really the essence on what gardening basically is. That's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed spending some more time with me in my garden, and I hope it was exciting that I take you with me in developing this entire brand new area of my garden. I honestly can't wait to see how this area is going to continue transforming and how it's going to look in half a year from now, when hopefully, and fingers crossed, it's going to be filled with a lot of fun colors. It's going to be like zingy, vibrant, lush, and just beautiful. A lot more is going to happen though in that area, obviously. Also in my brand new vegetable garden, a lot is going to happen with all those like annuals that I was sowing, perennials that I'm sowing. Here in the upper garden, I need to work a little bit on my lawn, so my head is really filled with projects. So thank you so much for watching today's video. Thank you if you decide to subscribe to my channel. Thank you if you give me a thumbs up for this video. More videos are going to follow, so stay tuned. Hope you have a wonderful day, and I'd love to welcome you next time around in my garden. Take care, guys. Bye.